Hi, my name's Ian Wallace, the Messed Up Counsellor. Today I'm going to be talking to you about a bit about me and the growing up years, a bit of self discovery, so to speak. Hopefully, it might resonate with other people. I don't think I'm unique. And as I said in the New Year's Resolution podcast, if you listen to it, this year's going to be putting another book out about my younger years and my process of becoming in this world, this life, and the scrapes and the situations I got myself into, which are not always helpful, I need to say. When I grew up, I was the youngest of three kids. And by all accounts, from what I'm told, because obviously I don't remember when I was born, I was an ectopic pregnancy. Now, in 1956, yeah, I'm that old. In 1956, an ectopic pregnancy apparently was a bit serious and a bit like, how the heck did you actually survive? Now, I don't know how I survived. Obviously, I'm not aware of that. My mother, bless her, she's no longer with me. So from that point of view, I can't reminisce on these things from her point of view. But what I was told as I was growing up is that produced a serious situation for the family, with my mum, obviously, and my dad and my sister and my brother. And that process kind of made it different for me. I'm of the opinion now, with the work I do and the many years I've spent doing it, that actually when we're conceived in the womb, we start to build up an understanding of the world. Now, depending on the pregnancy, and depends on the process of the pregnancy and the experiences the pregnant person has, the mother, then I think we also have some of that. I think we start feeling the world through that process, through the experiences of the mum and the things that happen around them. And I don't know if that's true. I'm not a doctor or a scientist or a psychologist, and I've not done any studies on this. It's just my thoughts and ideas. But I think in my world, that created a process for me of feeling left out, separate too. And I think that's always stayed with me. I think that experience in my process of coming into the world, so to speak, being born, had an effect. Now, I don't say that in a way for people to feel sorry about me. I'm not doing it for that reason. Just that maybe thinking about the experience that the pregnant person has, the mum, actually does resonate with the unborn child. But the child is developing, the child's growing, and the child is feeling, presumably, things around them, as I would expect. The noises, the emotional process of the mum, the things that's going on around them must have an effect in my world. I can't say that from a medical process or a psychologist process, but I would imagine it does. Seems to have done for me, and I can only give you my experience and knowledge. So as I'm growing up, as I'm getting more and more, there was an aspect of not really engaging with crowds, not engaging with people, connecting to people, but not fully engaging with people. So I was a bit of a loner. And insofar as I'm told, again, because I don't remember it, that as my mum would walk me in the pram into the town that we were brought up in, as soon as we got to the high street, which is obviously a lot busier, I would start screaming in the pram and crying and wouldn't necessarily be comforted. I don't know if that's because there's a lot of people in a crowd and I feel claustrophobic or I feel hemmed in. I don't know. But I could see how those things can fit together with this ectopic pregnancy process, being outside of the womb. So those things lead me to talk about some of the experiences that I had growing up that I can remember. And as with all things, we don't remember everything. And we only remember our understanding of it in any case. But that process of not feeling connected was something that I really had. We used to, as a lot of people did in those days, we went to Butlins every year. Firely Butlins every year on the East Coast. And that was, like all Butlins in those days, it was a bit like a concentration camp for kids. And there used to be 2 sit-ins for dinner. So you'd have sitting 1 or sitting 2, and if you were in sitting 2, you couldn't go in sitting 1. And anybody who remembers those days, of the early days of holiday camps, so to speak, it was fun. It wasn't a horrible place to go, and it was a holiday. And we got to do stuff that we couldn't do normally. So we kind of like enjoyed it. But there was always this aspect of, in those days, probably different now, I would think, is that if you were a lone child, then you really couldn't interact with as many activities. Certainly within the fun fairs and things where there was 2 people to go into a seat, you'd always have to find somebody to pal up with. And my sister, being older than me, she used to take a friend with her. I couldn't or didn't or wasn't allowed. I don't know. But I was always the one that was external to that process. So it kind of evolved in this loneliness, being alone, being okay with my own company. I'm not wanting to be the victim here, not wanting you to feel sorry for me. It was a choice thing as well. But there was this aspect of being separate too. Now, as I'm growing up, as I'm getting older, that became my normal. And as I explore in the book, the first book I wrote, that didn't change till I was about 5 or 6. The family wasn't necessarily people who wanted outside people to come in, so we didn't have sleepovers or we didn't have birthday parties or those kind of things. There was nobody really coming into the house if it wasn't part of the family. So when I get to 5 or 6, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but it was there or thereabouts. I was not invited to a family wedding because the family wedding could have no more than 2 kids attend, and I've got a brother and a sister. So naturally, I'm being the youngest, I was kind of left at home. And not on my own, I need to say. I was left with a friend's family. And as I'm going through that process of this friend's family and staying with them for the day until late in the evening, then their family unit was totally different. They invited lots of people in, people who weren't part of the family, people who were friends, people just passed by, and there'd be a whole range of people coming in and out all day. And that was peculiar to me. It gave me the first understanding of comparison. So I'm comparing my family life as I grow up to this family life. And initially it was scary having all these people coming in that I didn't know, as you can imagine, for a 5 or 6 year old. I was safe, I felt okay, but it was a bit scary, a bit overpowering, a bit claustrophobic. And then at the end of the day, I kind of like came to an understanding, well, actually, I kind of like that. I liked that social interaction. I liked a lot more people around me. And I kind of became accustomed to it. And as I became accustomed to it, I started to enjoy it. I started to open up. I started to talk to other people, share food. And obviously they were feeding me during this day 2 or 3 times. So I kind of like went through that process of engaging, connecting. And part of me was a bit scared of it, as you can imagine. But part of me enjoyed it. It was a different experience, a new experience. And as I go back into my own family after that day, looking at my family and looking at this other family and the comparison, I tried to engage with that. I tried to allow my family to open up a bit more and allow people in. But that was something the family couldn't do. So it wasn't able to have kind of like sleepovers and things like that. Although that wasn't really a thing in my day, as much as it is nowadays. But we would have, friends would have me to stay. But I couldn't reciprocate. I couldn't have them back with us. So as we're moving forward and getting older, I find that's something that I would have liked to have changed. I couldn't change it. I don't have the control or the standing in the family to do it. And going forwards, I think that shaped some of my ideas around human interactions and connections. It made me more aware of difference and diversity, if you like, and how we could still be okay even if we're in different types of situation scenarios. It extended my understanding and made it that I was more interested in diversity and difference as I grew up. And those things didn't necessarily challenge me as much as maybe some other people around me. So it was a negative process in one sense, but a positive process in the other. And it made me realise that everything I've been through and some of the things I've been through are not helpful or easy, and not able to necessarily be fully shared with people on the podcast. But the things I've been through, when I've come out of them, those dark areas, if you like, those kind of deep areas, there has been a positive going forward. There has been something I've achieved from them, something I've gained from them as an awareness. And I think that's made me into the glass is half full, not half empty kind of person. I do look at things differently now to what I did when I was younger, definitely. And I see more about that aspect of growing, development, encouragement, being somebody who pushes those boundaries that my family kind of had of how they lived their world. And I don't think that was easy for my family as I'm growing up, because I get tarnished with the concept of being the black sheep of the family. Something that people in my day used to kind of call the people who were the instigators, the kind of pushing boundaries kind of a person. And I don't think it was just me, to be fair. I think my sister pushed some boundaries as well. And my brother did, to be fair. But I think in that process, it always came back down to me. That I'm the one that was disturbing things, you know. If there was police at the door because of something I'd done, it was never my brother or my sister that had that kind of a process, only me. So the aspects of pushing those boundaries, of exploring the world and being adventurous, if you like, in the world, made me more able to be connected to diversity and difference. I challenged those boundaries. And I think as I grew up, certainly in my teenage years, I think those things became natural for me. Not necessarily always helpful for my family, as I've said. And I got into scrapes, and I was small for my age, and basically probably could get places other people couldn't, if you take my drift. And those kind of aspects. So moving forward, growing and developing, I get this concept that out of everything that's ever happened to me, and I say some of it's not helpful or easy, and some dark stuff, I've always come forward with this positive aspect from it. So if you look at my dyslexia, of which I've talked about previously, I can see that as a negative because I'm not academic, because I can't read, I can't do those kind of things. So textbooks and things were really, really hard for me, as most people who are dyslexic will understand, if you're dyslexic with words and grammar. But that process of dyslexia I could see as stopping me, inhibiting me, reducing me in some way, shape or form. But I don't. I see it as, yes, there are some things I cannot do. No matter how hard I try, I cannot do them. Yeah, I can get better at doing them, and I am, but I'm not able to do them. But I do push that to try and make myself better. But the positive thing it gives me from growing up is I really feel able to understand people. I can suss things out. I can look at interactions of people, and I can get an informed understanding of what may or may not be going on. Now, in my work as a counsellor, that's absolutely a wonderful, positive process. We call it now being somatic. I used to call it intuitive. There's a new word for it. And that aspect of understanding the world around us in all sorts of different ways, with all sorts of different perceptions and feelings, emotions, those kind of things, and exploring the world in that way, not just through our eyes, but with our own body. And I think that's something that's mainly been part of my world, that I can do that much more effectively than some people. Not everybody. There's people better than me at doing that. But I think it's given me a richness of awareness and understanding. And I think in the counselling world that really helps. Relationship world, not so much, because you can't be objective in your own relationships, as I know to my cost. And that process means that I can be more involved in the world in a much wider way. So newness and difference does not, in some senses, frighten me. It's interesting. I look at the world in a more interesting way. And I think that's a defined difference with my growing up process that's merged this world into my world as I've adopted it, as I've taken it on board. And for anybody listening to this who kind of feels at odd with the world, as I did, to be fair, try and look at it differently. The world is in our head. I know that's a bit of a mad thing to say, but how we perceive the world is how the world is for us personally, and everybody perceives it differently. So two people can look at exactly the same view and they can get a different idea of that view. That's kind of the way I explain it. So that world of difference and diversity as I'm growing up has made me realise that this feeling, emotion that I have can resonate with where I am. So I kind of trust it. So if people are able to do that, and this feeling of dyslexia is a negative, it isn't. It's actually given us different skills. Yeah, can't be academic. Don't worry about it. Don't down yourself on it. Stop trying to do it. But look at the positive skills you've got from it. Look at that process and say, okay, yeah, that's what I can't do, but that enables me to do this. And what I say to people is, if something's easy for you, and you think everybody it's easy for, as we do with the world, see it as a skill. Not that it's easy for you to do, but it is a skill you've naturally got. Because looking at it in that sense, that this is a skill that I've naturally got, that other people don't have as much of, then that will help you to see the world in a different way from your own perspective. Seeing the glass half full instead of half empty. Seeing that there's something that I've got from that, not something I've lost from that. If you can change that in your world and your life and your process, it makes the world easier to be in. And it makes it more interesting, more engaging, more understanding. And then those things that you've got skills, then you can pass on to other people. Years ago, I was in marketing, sales, management. And we were doing some interviews. And we were interviewing for merchandisers, which predominantly were female because it was merchandisers for 2 or 3 hours a day. It wasn't a full-time job, so to speak. So these people were going to supermarkets and merchandise products. And I was interviewing this young mum, mid-30s, and she was looking for the job of a merchandiser. And we're having a conversation in the interview. And I said, okay, so what have you got that you've got skills or abilities? And she said, I don't think I've got many. I said, all right, that's interesting. And I said, so you're a mum? Yeah, I'm a mum. How many kids you got? Well, I've got 2 kids. And how old are they? Well, one's 5 and one's 8. Okay. So do you think you're a good mum? I do think I'm a good mum. And people tell me I'm a good mum. Okay, so what skills does a good mum have? And we started listing all the skills that a good mum has and that she can do. So you're a great timekeeper. Well, how do I know that? Well, you get 2 kids up for school, you get things sorted, you make things happen. Yeah, okay. You're a great planner. Oh, well, you're planning the meals, you're planning the rotas, you're planning what's happening with the school, you're doing all those kind of things with the organising. Well, yeah. And do you kind of like care about your kids? Of course I do. Well, you're a good carer then, aren't you? You care about people, you care about how people interact, you care about how effective you are with them, how effective they are with you. And we listed all these things to her were natural, normal things that she did every day of the week. And I listed them as skills. And within that interview, her idea of self had grown enormously. And she was no longer restricted by, well, I'm just a mum. She saw all those wonderful positive skills it gave her that were easy for her, but not easy for everybody. It was an interesting process for me, obviously, as well, in a sense that bringing together some of those skills I have in bringing out in people what they can do, how they can be effective, encouraging them, bringing forward those skills and abilities, that made me realise that actually this counselling job and coaching and mentoring job and teaching job I would be good at. So don't look at these things that you find easy as just easy. Look at them as skills and abilities. Identify them. And then find out where those skills and abilities are needed. Certainly if you're looking for recruitment, you're looking for a job. And then find where they are needed and then focus in on those areas. And that might be a better alternative than just applying for anything. Hopefully that bit of a journey into my world, or piece of my world, has been interesting and helped some people understand themselves a bit more. If it has, that's fantastic. Absolutely great, because that's what I'm trying to do. Using my own world to understand other people's worlds. If it hasn't been, then I'm sorry. Hopefully the next one will be. But please subscribe and share and like, because you never know who might be benefiting from this, that are connected to you, part of your world, part of your social grouping. Because these things will be helpful to somebody, naturally, because it's not just my life I've been talking about. It's actually lots of people's lives. Hopefully that will make a difference. I'm Ian Wallace, the Messed Up Counsellor. Take care and enjoy your new year.